We believe the use of AI-enabled virtual assistants to augment our marketing and sales human capital will grow. And it really provides new opportunities, kind of always-on opportunities, to engage customers, start conversations, and find who's really ready to talk with our sales teams.
Welcome to the Modern Marketing Engine podcast, hosted by Bernie Borges. This is the podcast for the modern marketer who wants to hear from their peers in the trenches and the occasional analyst or rockstar influencer sharing strategies and tactics about what's working in modern marketing. Be sure to listen to the end of each episode for Bernie's summary and takeaways so you can plan your next move in your own modern marketing journey.
Hey there, welcome to episode 255 of the Modern Marketing Engine podcast. I'm Bernie Borges, CMO of Conversa and your host. Hey, thanks for listening. Hey, my guest on this episode is Kevin Colosimo, Senior Director of Digital Strategy and Innovation in North America Marketing at Oracle. Kevin, welcome to the Modern Marketing Engine podcast.
Thanks, Bernie. I'm excited to be here and join you and your audience.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I'm excited about our topic. This is a topic that we've covered in a few different ways over the years, and that is how to identify conversation-ready leads faster with an AI assistant. In fact, you may not know this little bit of trivia that the first conversation that I ever had on this topic was back in December 2017, episode 188. And it was Alex Terry, the CEO of Conversica. And of course, as we get into it, we're going to learn how you all are using that. But before we do that, let's get a little bit of background. I always like to start with an introduction to you and your company. Of course, Kevin, a lot of people know who Oracle is, but why don't you give our listener a refresher on who Oracle is and your role at the company?
Sure. Thanks, Bernie. Well, I think most people know that about Oracle, but most folks focus on us as a database provider and the world's leading provider of database software, but we're much more than that. We're the number one provider of business software and have a broad portfolio of solutions for companies really of all sizes and across multiple industries. Our cloud solutions span infrastructure services, platforms, applications, and industry-specific solutions. And today we have over 430,000 customers in 175 countries using Oracle. And last year generated about $40 billion in revenue. So large company, big demands from a revenue standpoint, but very exciting with all the innovations that we're doing.
I bet. And on the big demand side, why don't you give the listener an overview of your role in the company in North American marketing?
Sure. So I'm part of our North American marketing team, really responsible for digital marketing strategy and programs. Our team reports actually into sales, so we're very focused and measured on lead and pipeline generation. In terms of my role, I've been in B2B marketing over the last 25 years, working in a number of different areas from product development, product marketing, sales, and digital marketing. And most recently, I've been leading a key initiative to bring new technology and innovations to our marketing and sales processes. And the goal really, Bernie, is to help marketing and sales work more effectively together to achieve better results.
Love that. Love the fact, Kevin, that you report into sales. I think that's a model that we don't see too often. And of course, on this podcast, we've had numerous episodes on the topic of marketing and sales alignment. I think perhaps, Kevin, this might be the first one that I've seen where actually you're reporting into sales. So that's terrific. Let's get into the main topic. And just to kind of set the stage for that, I want to kind of frame up the business issue. And I'm going to really start with the context of the world that I live in. You know, I head up marketing at Conversa. And, you know, we want to generate leads for our sales team as well. In our case, we're not a software company. We're a professional services company providing digital sales and training and consulting. So we're all about producing content and inbound marketing and generating leads. And so you're doing it for a much bigger company. We're not a $40 billion company yet, Kevin. We're working on that. So why don't you kind of frame up the primary business drivers that got you to what we're going to discuss today about providing more conversation-ready leads?
Sure. There are really a couple of primary drivers to our movement here. One is, as you mentioned, we have large and really rapidly growing revenue and pipeline targets, especially driven by the growth in our cloud businesses. And our marketing teams were focused on generating large volumes of leads to try to hit the pipeline targets that they've been assigned. The problem was that the current state wasn't really working for either marketing nor sales. Marketing was focused on generating a high volume of MQLs to hit their targets, but many of the leads were not really ready to have a conversation with our sales teams. Also, marketing really wants to make sure every lead that gets past the sales is worked effectively and completely, but many weren't because of the large volumes of leads that weren't really ready to be past the sales in the first place. So sales wanted conversations and marketing was still focused on MQLs. So we really decided to take a kind of a fresh approach and started with something really simple, which was, hey, what percentage of our leads are really conversation ready versus not? What we noticed when we looked at the data, Bernie, was about 80% of our volume was coming from what we classified as non-core, and only 20% were considered conversation ready, or what we have conveniently called core leads.
I want to clarify specifically, because I know this before we started recording, you mentioned CORE is your acronym for Conversation Ready, correct?
Correct.
Can you elaborate on what you mean by conversation ready? What is a conversation ready lead?
No, and that's a great question. The way that we looked at it was, is there some behavior that the person is doing in their request that lets us know that they're really ready for a conversation? And it sounds pretty simple, but these are things like if someone requested a demo or a trial of our product, or they came onto our website and asked to interact in a chat session or have a call, we said, well, those are conversation ready. They're really ready to have a discussion with our sales teams about their problem and how our solutions could help. If someone downloaded a white paper or attended a webcast, it's really good to know that they're interacting with our content, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're ready to have a conversation. So that's one way we looked at, what was the source of this response or lead, and can we infer from what that offer was as to whether they were ready to have a conversation.
You said, Kevin, that you decided to take a fresh look at it. And you also mentioned, I remember before we started recording, that most of the leads that you were previously generating, most of them were not conversation, right? So what was that ratio of conversation ready to non-conversation ready?
When we looked at the data, about 80% of our volume was what we considered non-conversation ready, and 20% was conversation ready. But what we also noticed was, as naturally you might expect, that the conversion rates, and by conversion rate, I mean what percentage of the leads that were passed to sales actually were qualified as an sales opportunity and converted into pipeline. The conversion rates for core leads was much higher than non-core. So non-core were converting in the low single digits, and core or conversation ready leads were converting at 20% plus. So really the fundamental question we asked ourselves was, well, how can we do a better job identifying and generating more conversation ready leads at scale, given the volumes that we needed to generate at Oracle?
Well, that certainly, given that 80-20 ratio that you just explained, Kevin, that certainly seems like the right question to ask. How can you do a better job of generating more conversation-ready leads? So let's unpack that. What's the approach that you took? How did you go about really defining a model to come up with producing more conversation-ready leads?
Sure. So we actually looked at a couple different alternatives before we settled on kind of using our virtual assistants. So first was we considered, well, let's flow more of these non-core leads to our nurture campaigns. But when we looked at the data, we found that our traditional approach to nurturing prospects or leads. They're really good at educating folks and keeping them informed of important trends and innovations and best practices. But they really haven't been great at identifying contacts who are truly ready to talk with an Oracle Solutions expert. The second area we looked at was, well, let's revamp our lead scoring models. And we've been really investing a lot of effort with our teams to leverage predictive analytics and machine learning so that we're smarter on when to pass leads to sales. So we looked at both of those areas, but there were some limitations in both.
Now, lead scoring is a pretty hot topic, especially when you apply machine learning to it. So what did you guys learn from that?
Well, first, we're really excited about the promise of machine learning-based lead scoring, and we're seeing much better results than old models. But they have some limitations. And the limitations are just because a lead looks like other high-converting leads doesn't necessarily mean that this specific person is ready to talk to sales. And all too often what we would see is that leads got past the sales, not because they had communicated the desire to talk, but because their digital body language had resulted in a high enough lead score. So we felt that let's continue to use more advanced, sophisticated lead scoring models, but we felt that that was not sufficient.
Kevin, spoken like a true digital marketing professional, I'm going to ask you to come back to something you just said, and that's their digital body language. You said their digital body language, they portrayed some digital body language, but it didn't really amount to a conversation-ready lead. Can you unpack that a little bit?
So first, by digital body language, I mean all the interactions that someone takes through different on the web or through social channels when they interact with Oracle content or any marketer's content. And so we capture all this behavior. We capture the fact that they visited our website. We capture that they registered to download an ebook, right? We capture all these interactions, which collectively we call their digital body language. And oftentimes marketers set up lead scoring models that say, look, if someone does X amount of behavior in this amount of time, we're going to increase their score because they're showing more interest, which is great. But sometimes just showing more interest doesn't mean you're ready to have a conversation. We've all seen the stats, right? People, spend 70% of their effort researching on their own before they're ready to talk to sales. And so the challenge is, how do I find out when they're actually ready to talk to sales, as opposed to, great, let's capture all this behavior and this engagement data, which is super important to capture and leverage. But how do we do a better job finding when that point is that they're ready to talk to sales?
So you like the promise of machine learning lead scoring, but doesn't sound like you're really invested heavily in that right now in terms of delivering more conversation-ready leads. So what was the next approach that you explored?
Sure. And I want to be clear, we are bullish on the lead scoring and we're continuing leveraging that. But the question was, how could we drive more volume and identify more conversation-ready leads? So what we decided to do was to try a new approach. And that was to augment our marketing and sales teams with virtual assistants powered by AI. So we believed by employing a combination of AI-enabled virtual assistants with our human resources that we could generate better financial results and improve the productivity of our human capital. So to support the initiative, we partnered with a company called Conversica. And we partnered with them because of their proven success and deep experience in this space. And we've used their platform to build out, currently we have 4 virtual assistants to support multiple pre-purchase and post-purchase use cases. So we're really excited about how we can leverage these virtual assistants to do a better job in identifying conversation-ready leads.
A couple of things I want to just elaborate on. As I mentioned at the beginning of our recording, I first became aware of Conversa Co when I interviewed their CEO, Alex Terry. And then just a couple of episodes ago, we had Rashmi Vittal and Greg Ames, their head of marketing and head of sales, on the podcast to talk about how they're approaching marketing and sales together. So really a big fan of the company and everything they're doing. You said something in how you're using their technology that's very intriguing, and I want to come back to it. And you said that you're employing a combination of AI-enabled virtual assistants and human resources. Can you unpack that a little bit, Kevin? Because I think it's an important point.
So let me just kind of walk through how this combination of AI virtual assistants and our human resources interact together. So first, our virtual assistants engage contacts that we send to it with tailored messages and offers in a personalized, friendly, human-like two-way conversation. Our virtual assistants will make multiple attempts to engage, automatically varying the copy in each message.
Can I just interrupt and just ask you, you've got virtual assistants who are named, right? So they're reaching out in a persona.
Correct. So we've currently set up 4 virtual assistants to support the various use cases that we have. We have Cynthia, Nicole, Isabella, and Wendy. And each of them are naturally, they're very persistent, polite, prompt, and really effective at identifying core leads at scale. So we identified different personas, Bernie, for our virtual assistants for different use cases.
Okay.
Yeah, Cynthia, for example, reaches out to our applications audiences. Nicole, our tech audiences. Isabella is our events concierge. And Wendy is our post-purchase customer success assistant. And each of them have a similar approach in that they'll reach out with these tailored messages and offers. They'll make multiple attempts to engage, automatically varying the copy in each message attempt. They're smart in that they read and interpret the intent in the email replies and determine the next best action. And then if someone raises their hand and replies back that they would like a call, our virtual assistant will automatically confirm the best number for follow-up and alert the rep and their manager that there's a new hot lead. And 48 hours after sending a rep or a hot lead, our virtual assistant will reach back out to confirm if that person was contacted and if they were satisfied or not. So we now have kind of immediate closed loop feedback on the effectiveness of our lead follow-up. But this interaction between how the virtual assistant does the initial outreach to identify who's ready to talk and then does a handoff to the rep and shares with the rep exactly what that interaction that the virtual assistant had with that lead and what the conversation was. And now the rep can pick up that conversation. But they're now focused on primarily leads that have already raised their hand, as opposed to having to focus their attention on emailing and phoning, the vast volume of non-core leads that were really not converting very well. So it took a lot of effort to find who was ready to talk.
We'll be back with the rest of my conversation with Kevin Colosimo in just a moment. The story that Kevin is sharing is fascinating. What I like best about it is that it's a real-world example of how marketers can use AI-powered technology to get better results. So I want to encourage you to learn more about how you can use Conversica, the leader in conversational artificial intelligence assistance for business. So as you're hearing from Kevin, you can automate routine business conversations and personalize interactions at scale. Conversica AI assistants allow you to augment your workforce, allowing humans and AI assistants to work together harmoniously. Learn more at Conversica.com. So they're truly conversation. They're raising their hand saying, yes, I'm ready to have a conversation with someone after the persistent follow-up. And as you mentioned, Kevin, each one focused on a different persona. So fantastic. These are big changes And I'm sure everything has just been perfect and smooth and without a challenge, right?
Absolutely. Changes like this are real simple for an organization to adopt. Yeah, no, we knew a change like this was not going to be easy, Bernie. And I think anyone who has tried to drive change in a big organization understands, the challenges. To increase really the likelihood of success, we applied three key principles. One was we built internal support and champions with the right folks to get support for the initiative. We selected the right use cases to pilot where we felt that we could get, strong results and low risk. And we redesigned our approach to email messaging from our virtual assistant. So each one of these has, kind of their own purposes. But if I walk you through each one of these areas a little bit, I think it'll provide a little more clarification. So the first step was really to build support for the idea, both the executive level and in our lead development organization. So we needed effective internal champions who were willing to try something new and had the ability to sell the idea to other important executives. So we really started with what business outcomes did we think that we could drive by applying the virtual assistants, and got their buy-in and support to make the investment in the change management that was required. The second aspect of the organizational effort was within our lead development organization. And we wanted to start small. So we identified a few managers and reps who were viewed favorably by their peers and who were willing and excited to try something new. And we knew we needed folks who would be patient with the inevitable issues you get when you roll out a new program and you have new processes and data integrations. We wanted people who would be excited and then be very interactive with us on what tweaks we had to make. We firmly believed if we could prove to this small group of reps and managers that we could help them hit their numbers more easily, other teams would want in. And that's what we saw.
It's all about that, right? At the end of the day, it's all about those conversation ready leads to fill a pipeline and produce more on the other side.
Absolutely. And the second step I mentioned about selecting the right use cases to pilot. Our virtual assistants support multiple use cases across both pre-purchase and post-purchase. But what we wanted to do was, start small, pick some use cases where we believed we had low risk and good upside. We picked two to start with. Re-engagement of leads that had been passed to our sales teams but were retired because primarily the person was unable to reach the lead. And then second was redirecting some of our new leads that were coming from high volume but low converting non-core programs and redirect those to our virtual assistants. So we wanted to see two things. One, could we get better results in our traditional retired lead re-engagement nurture campaigns by using a new approach to outreach? And for the new leads from non-core programs, we wanted to see, could we generate as much pipeline from these high volume, low converting programs while reducing the number of leads that actually the reps had to work? So we felt that these two use cases, Bernie, really provided a good entree to prove out whether it worked and in a low risk manner.
Okay. Well, of course, I'm dying to know, and my listeners dying to know, what kind of results you've been experiencing and over what period of time. And really, did you see things happen quickly? And that shift as it was happening, was it something that just really had the impact that you were looking for, which is more conversation ready leads?
Yeah, we're about 1 year into our program and we're super pleased with the results. So we've been generating a high volume of conversation ready leads that convert into quality pipeline. The conversion rates coming from our leads from our virtual assistants have been as high, if not higher, than other sources of conversation ready leads or core leads. And we've improved the efficiency of our lead development reps by sending fewer but much higher quality leads. So those have been two really important outcomes. The other thing is we've confirmed that our virtual assistants are much more effective in identifying core leads than our traditional nurture campaigns. And this was something that we felt was really important to validate, that because our choice was, hey, we could send these leads to traditional nurture, marketing campaigns that people have been using for quite a while with their automation tools. or we could send them to the virtual assistants. And what we found is our virtual assistants, in the way that we messaged, was much more effective in identifying core leads. And I would say that one of the learnings and how we've evolved, Bernie, is that we really took a fresh look at our messaging. And that has made a big impact on improving identification of core leads. And what we did with our messaging was we really looked at three aspects. One, how do we provide context in the emails that we send out? How do we convey value as to why you should talk to us now? And how do we simplify the ask or the call to action? And so each one of these really helped us drive better results. So providing context is we really focused on looking at what was the perceived interest that the person had, not what action they took to become a response or lead. So I think one of the things we all have seen in marketing is often we pass leads to the sales teams because someone registered to download an ebook. And the typical email follow-up where the conversation is the lead development person says, hey, I noticed that you downloaded our ebook and I'd like to follow up. Well, a lot of times people say, well, I download a lot of things. I can't remember this. I can't remember that one. So we said, well, let's change the focus. What was the reason the person downloaded that ebook? What problem could we infer that they had or the opportunity they were trying to capture, and focus on that? So I'll give you an example. The message would start off instead of, hey, I saw that you downloaded our ebook, to, hey, I noticed you're interested in reducing the time it takes to close your financial books each month. We've worked with companies like yours to do X, Y, and Z. And I'd like to invite you to a discussion about how we've helped those customers. Would you be interested in a call? So we're changing the way that we message to make it much simpler and to ensure that we convey value as to why should you talk to a rep now and how can we help you with the problem that you're facing.
Is it also accurate for me to say that you also control that, right? Instead of sending that out to sales development reps and say this, you actually are funneling it through the system, and these assistants are doing it because you're setting it up for them.
Absolutely. Spot on, Bernie. This is something that all of our marketers love and our product marketing teams love as well, because one of the challenges, especially in a large organization where you have hundreds of lead development reps or salespeople who are following up, is even though you provide some messaging guideline, you're not guaranteed that everyone's going to get that same message. And so with our virtual assistant, we know that every contact we send to our virtual assistant will get the desired message and the number of outreach attempts before stopping. So we don't have this situation where some rep says, well, I don't like leads coming from this source. I'll give it a couple attempts and then I'm going to retire it. Right? We know that we're going to give them the right message, convey a compelling offer, and make as many attempts as we tell the system we want it to make before it stops.
Yep. Now, at the beginning of our conversation here today, you said that what you're doing is you're augmenting your workforce with virtual assistants. And you knew going into it there would be some challenges and you'd have to get buy-in. But what are some of the maybe unexpected outcomes that you've seen by augmenting your workforce this way?
One of the things that it's allowed us to do is to revisit how we allocate our human capital. So by using our virtual assistants to do the initial outreach to our non-core leads and to identify who's ready to talk, we're able to make our lead follow-up staff more efficient and more effective. So this has allowed us to free up some of the reps to focus on other high-value activities. For example, at Oracle, marketing is increasingly being measured by the quality of the pipeline and won revenue. So this is one of the things about when you report into sales, marketing is held to a number here that we have to give. It helps drive this alignment that you talked about between marketing and sales.
I once spoke to a VP of marketing who said that when he meets with his VP of sales, he says, your number is my number.
Which is perfect. Whenever you can make that happen, you help drive alignment. So now because we're able to make our lead development staff more efficient and effective, we now have the opportunity to allocate some of that staff deeper in the funnel to support pipeline progression and thereby extend the value marketing is contributing to the business. So this is not something where we're replacing staff. It's more of, wow, we now have an alternative way to reallocate our human capital by better leveraging our virtual assistants to do initial outreach, to find new opportunities, and to generate the same, if not more, pipeline, but by flowing fewer leads to our lead development staff.
Okay. You said you're about 1 year into it. So what's next? What's on the immediate horizon?
Well, we're expanding the use cases where we are applying our virtual assistants and increasing the volume of contacts that we message. And one use case that's interesting and that we find very promising is leveraging the massive volume of intent data that we capture and that third parties capture. So we are identifying, using intent data, topics and solutions that we care about, and then identifying which accounts using our predictive models and which contacts at those accounts are the best opportunities for us to focus on and do an outreach. Well, we're talking massive volumes, and it doesn't make sense to flow those to our reps directly. But now we have a way to use our virtual assistants to tailor a message based upon what topic someone is showing intent on, and do an outreach to them with a high value offer to see if they're ready to talk to sales. So this is kind of newfound opportunities for us, and we're finding that our virtual assistants are much more effective in identifying people who are ready to talk than our traditional methods on leveraging that intent data.
Okay. Kevin, this is fascinating. And I want to ask one final question before we kind of bring things to a wrap. And I'm going to do a quick summary before we do that. Give me your thoughts on marketing's role in building awareness and engaging customers throughout the customer's journey and applying AI in a way that really can have a positive upside for sales teams and marketing teams like what you're experiencing at Oracle.
Marketing still has a really important role as to building awareness of the solutions that we offer, engaging customers throughout their journey, including when they're not ready to talk to sales, right? But now we have a new tool at our fingertips here. And we believe the use of AI-enabled virtual assistants to augment our marketing and sales human capital will grow. And it really provides new opportunities, kind of always-on opportunities to engage customers, start conversations, and find who's really ready to talk with our sales teams. And we believe that this will continue to improve our results and the productivity of our teams. So what I would encourage all marketers and sales teams to look at is where are the best use cases across both your pre-purchase pipeline generation as well as engaging your existing customers, where you could use technology like AI-enabled virtual assistants to help facilitate that outreach and to identify who's ready to talk while still delivering a great experience for that customer. So we're really excited and bullish about the future of this.
I can see why, Kevin. I can see why. That's a great story. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do a quick recap. I normally do a pretty detailed summary, but we've covered a lot of ground here. So I'm going to try to do a quick recap and then just kind of bring things to a wrap. And Kevin, we began our conversation with a brief sort of reintroduction to Oracle for my listener. Very large global company, once known as a database software company, but today really just all things business software in the cloud, number one provider of business software with 430,000 customers really across the globe and $40 billion in revenue. So big software company. And your role in the company, North American marketing, is in digital marketing, strategy, and programs. You said you report into sales. And with your 25 years of B2B marketing experience, you're doing some really great things to move the needle in sales, as we just discussed. So we talked about sort of how you got to this state of really testing and implementing conversation-ready AI assistants. And you said that, look, you've got a lot of revenue goals, aggressive revenue goals. You looked at the current state of what you were doing in marketing, and basically you discovered you were producing a lot of MQLs, a lot of high volume, but not necessarily producing conversation-ready leads. So in looking at the 80-20 ratio, 80% of the volume was non-conversation, or as you call them, core, the acronym for conversation ready. 80% of the volume was non-core, and only 20% was conversation ready. So you looked at a number of methods. What could you do differently? And essentially arrived at using AI-powered conversation assistants to drive more quality leads by augmenting the marketing team through these virtual assistants that are powered by AI. You mentioned you've got 4 of them: Cynthia, Nicole, Isabella, and Wendy. I didn't jot down the specific persona of each of them, but you mentioned that each one has a different persona that's focused on a different sort of area of focus. And by deploying them with key messaging that you specifically test and design, you've been able to generate higher quality leads in less volume, and really been able to sort of redeploy staff, human staff, in a way that makes better use of their time while producing better quality more conversation ready leads. And one of the things you mentioned near the end of our conversation, Kevin, which I think is a key point that I want to make sure it doesn't get lost, and that is that these assistants, these virtual assistants, are always on. You're able to control them because you are deploying them through technology. So you can control the messaging and you can control the timing. And of course, you're a global company, so it means you're able to deploy them how you choose to deploy them across a 24-hour cycle. Your last point was that you really are excited about where you are and where you're headed with this. So I'm going to leave my summary there. I promise to keep it short and high level, and just ask if there's any final point that you'd like to add.
I think the only other point I'd ask or add is to just encourage marketers to take a look at these new capabilities and reimagine how marketing and sales can work together to combine these new AI-enabled virtual assistants and your human capital. Take the first step out there. Find use cases that you think that are going to have good upside, and start by building those internal champions. Start small, prove to your organization that this delivers measurable business outcomes. And I think you'll be really excited about what you can achieve.
Well said, Kevin. Well said. Where would you like to send my listener to connect with you online and learn more about what you've got going on at Oracle? You can connect to me via LinkedIn. You can find me, Kevin Colosimo, at Oracle there. Or you can send me an email at kevin.colosimo@oracle.com. It's Colosimo is the spelling of the last name. So I look forward to talking with anyone who would like to connect. Fantastic. Well, Kevin, my listener knows that will be linked up in our show notes page at vengresso.com. Well, Kevin, we've covered a lot of ground. I just want to thank you for your great insights and the experience that you shared here on this episode of the Modern Marketing Engine podcast. Hey, this episode is sponsored by Conversica. With a large library of purpose-built and ready-to-use conversational skills, Conversica's AI assistants can be deployed quickly. They're human-like and personal, and they provide superior conversational accuracy and autonomy. Learn more at Conversica.com.
This wraps up another inspiring episode of the Modern Marketing Engine podcast. If you want to share this podcast with a friend, let them know that we're available on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Podcasts. And we love 5-star reviews. If you are not subscribed yet, please hit the subscribe button on your favorite podcast player so you don't miss an episode. You can read the show notes for each episode at vengresso.com. While you're there, sign up to receive the show notes delivered to your inbox through our weekly alerts. And be sure to also check out our Selling with Social podcast hosted by Vengresso CEO Mario Martinez Jr. Again, you'll find our show notes at vengresso.com. And that's 1 S in Vengresso. Tune in again next week when Bernie Borges brings you another inspiring interview to help you thrive on your modern marketing journey.